Magic 107.5, 97.5, the real sound of Atlanta. Ryan Cameron Uncensored. You know, I could almost look at it as if, I don't know if I'm happy, yet sad, yet angry, because I'm very happy to have Iyanla Vanzant in the studio because I know that she's a motivator, an initiator, enunciator, but I also know I have a limited time. So I'm kind of like, let me get to it because I know you're on a tour. First of all, welcome back.
Thank you.
With all of the things that you're doing. The thing that always sticks out to me, and we talk about it a lot on the show, is people who are helicopter moms, or they just kind of swoop in and try to save the day. and I saw you talk about what's the line about the moms that you have out there.
Which one?
It's not, if it ain't one thing, it's your mother.
Oh. Yeah.
I mean, I
and
get
a man
that.
is who his mother makes him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming back, what is it that motivates you to keep doing this?
It's not motivation. It is inspiration. I'm on purpose. This is the purpose that God has given me. I am an educator in the most ancient sense of the word. And if you take it all the way back to Kemet, educators draw out, they don't put in.
Mm-hmm.
Now we call them teachers. They're really educators who remind you and bring you to the door of your inner authenticity.
Mm.
So this is what God has put me here to do. I thought it was something else, but I'm clear now.
You have a direct path of where you're trying to go.
I'm on purpose, and I'm a bridge, and I am an educator and a teacher, and I've written my own curriculum. So I didn't just write 18 books because I wanted to sell books. That's the curriculum that I've been teaching for the past 30 years about universal law and spiritual principle, and about self and personal development.
Right. In the studio with us right now, Iyanla Vanzant. Fix My Life is a standalone product of amazing help for so many people.
Yeah.
I was watching people who want to do what you do. Is life coaching, and I just mean in the general sense, is it spiritual based, you think?
No, not all life coach. I wasn't trained as a spiritual life coach. I was trained as a life coach in one of the first classes of life coaches started by Thomas Leonard back in 1986. So life coaching is not spiritually based. I happen to be spiritually based
Right.
because I'm a minister. And so what in my study and in my craft, I was just guided and directed and inspired and given this whole process of spiritual technology.
Mm.
How do you get the soul to open
Right.
in a way that inspires, heals, corrects both the mind and the emotions?
Yeah.
How do you do that? So I'm really a spiritual technician, but because no white person has ever ordained that to be a good title,
Yeah.
I don't say that out loud because
Okay.
then black people will dismiss me because I haven't been sanctified by the white people. So I just say I'm a spiritual life coach.
I like that. A spiritual life coach. Now, when I talk to, and I have a coach in my life, but he always says, it doesn't matter what kind of decisions or conclusions that we come to if you don't do the work.
That's right. Got to do the work. Got to do the work. And the work is looking at your life, looking at yourself, looking at your results, and making the necessary course corrections required to get you to where you want to be. Very often we do what's familiar and what's comfortable. And the distinction between failure and success really are our habits.
Right.
And most of our habits are conditioned and programmed. So if you want to change, shift, grow, heal, you have to interrupt your patterns of dysfunction and do what works. And some of us don't know what works.
Just trying to throw it all up against the wall and see what sticks?
Well, you got to have a vision or an intention, and then you align your behavior accordingly. And that's what I do on Fix My Life. What I really do is interrupt the pattern, help people see what they're doing that doesn't work.
Right.
And then point them in the right direction, and it's up to them to do the work. And as you can see with my Mitchells, who came back for the unfinished business, they
Right.
wasn't moving in the right direction. They simply don't know how. Do you know how many of us don't know how to live? We know how to survive.
Right.
We know how to struggle.
Yeah.
We know how to get by.
Mm.
But I'm talking about live
Yeah.
fully, majestically. How many people don't know how to do that?
Yeah. I've had friends who have never taken a vacation.
Yeah,
And now I'm like, what is the purpose of the work?
right.
Like when you come back from something, you're supposed to be, re-energized and motivated. But if you just work to work, I don't get it.
Because we have a cellular, historical, ancestral memory of survival. And so we're working to survive. We're not working to serve,
Right.
working to grow, working to survive. And so people who have issues of survival and limits, self-imposed restrictions and limitations, feel if they don't stop, if they don't keep working, they won't survive.
And do people believe that when I talk to people after they've transitioned or been fired or let go, they're like, man, but I came to work on when I was sick and I had the flu. And I was like, I didn't ask you to do all that.
Yeah. We make that up. Again, it's historical. It's generational. Our ancestors, they had to hit that field whether they were sick or
Right.
pregnant or half dead, if they were 20 or 80 or 100. They had to hit the field. Don't you know that memory is still in us?
Right.
The trauma of that.
How do you fix that?
Do the work. First of all, you got to look at your life and look at what you're doing. Look at what you're believing. And then take the steps to move beyond what you know. One of the things that I talk about on my tour, the Acts of Faith Remix Tour, is, deepening faith to understand that faith is an internal, unseen knowing that dares your soul to go beyond what your eyes can recognize.
Wow.
So many of us stay stuck at what our eyes can recognize because our brain can control it.
Yeah.
But faith requires that you got to go beyond what your eyes can see.
And I think a lot of times, especially when you're asking for guidance, you're asking for, favor, you may not be prepared for the answer.
Oh, that's right. And it's the same thing with people who write to my show. They're not ready to do the work. You got to be willing, ready, and have the capacity. But sometimes we do ask the universe for something, and we're not ready for it. I tell people all the time, don't pray for a BMW if you don't have a garage. If you living in the projects on the street, you don't want your BMW outside, boo. Let's get the house in the garage and put the BMW in there. That's just process.
Right.
That's just, order. It's just a way of being. Not that you can't have a BMW in the projects, but that would say to me, why would you have a BMW in the projects instead of a Toyota in a home, in your own home?
Okay. I want to talk about the podcast.
Yeah.
Was that based on the fact that you got these shows, you got to put it into 42 minutes, there's all this great content that is kind of left for eyes not to see, but ears could hear?
Yes. And, people get so caught up, they think that and I've said for years, I'm with them for 3 and 4 days. You see 42 minutes. Don't jump to conclusions. And now we get to use so much of that footage and hear the larger conversation since people are listening as opposed to looking.
Right.
There's conversations that we can have now since people are listening and they can hear the whole story. So I think it's really good.
I want to go back to what I talked about in the beginning about, if it's not one thing, it's your mother. There are a lot of people, and we see it a lot of times when people come into the studio, they speak for their child who is 17, 18, 19, who has all these aspirations, these careers, but the mom is so much a part of it. I'm always wondering, how are they going to be able to survive when they're alone for the first time, or they have to do an interview or a job application, any of those things. Like, how do you convince moms to let the kids kind of do?
I don't know if you can convince them. So very often as mothers, we live vicariously through our children.
Right.
And we're so afraid of their failure because we model it after what we believe is our own failure. And then we make the children entitled. We make them arrogant because they really don't understand the work that goes into it because somebody was doing it for them. And we make them frightened, So it's really just about conscious parenting, seeing your children as who they are authentically, as divine spirits, and teach them and then let them do it as opposed to do it for them.
Right. Yeah, I was listening to a story. A man was talking about how he had been cleaning up his kid's bathroom for 17 years, and they were saying to him, why do you keep doing that? He says, because I keep telling them, and I'm tired of looking at it. And the people that he was talking to was like, if they go in there enough times and see the dirt and the scum, they will realize that they need to do something for themselves. But you going in there enabling them, to your point, and they know that you're going to do it. They know that you're going to come in and clean it.
Yeah. I remember when my son got arrested and he was sentenced to 7.5 to 15 years in prison. He was 23 years old. And I, as a mom, of course, now I am just the wretched of the earth. My son, my black son that I had when I was 16 years old is now going to jail. I have failed as a human being. I don't deserve to breathe air.
Take me now.
And, I remember we started writing him, and two things that my son said to me. He said, "Ma, the fears you had for me were not fears that I had for myself. You forced your fears upon me." I was like, oh, my God. The other thing that he said to me was, you gave me enough rope to hang myself. And then when I hung myself, instead of helping me get out of the situation, you beat me up for getting in trouble. Wow. So I wrote him back, "Tell me how I can do it better now."
Right.
He said, "Stop being my mother and be my friend."
And that's the opposite of what a lot of people say. They say, don't be your child's friend.
No, but he was older. He was 23, but at that point, stop mothering me, because as a mom, I had fears for him. And as a mom, I was always criticizing him and judging him. And as his friend, I could stand with him and for him as opposed to on him.
Right. I got
And that's what I did. And today, we're best of friends, and I'm still his mom. He will let you know that's my mother. He's 49 now.
Right.
And prayer and faith, he was sentenced to 7.5 to 15. He did 2.5 years and has never, ever gone back.
How do you feel about all the acclaim and also some of the subsequent backlash for the people involved in the When They See Us documentary about the Central Park Five?
Well, I lived in New York during that. I remember that Central Park Five. I remember how the current occupant of the White House behaved. I remember as a mom and as a black woman what that did to our city. I remember that. I haven't seen When They See Us because I'm on the road.
Right.
So I haven't been anywhere where I can see it. But here's what I know. I know the heart of Ava DuVernay. And I know she tells a story and a truth in a way that, is going to wake you up.
Right.
She did it in the 13. I said this to you early, and it's not a judgment, it's not a criticism. But for us people of color, Latin American, Native American, African American, I'm all three. We have become so complacent and such big punks, whining about every little thing and really not taking action the way we need to. Those young men, those 5 young men, represent hundreds of thousands who maybe didn't go to jail, maybe didn't get accused of that. I've got a grandson right now who got caught up in some, Wahala young people stuff at 19, ended up with a federal arms rap. Can't even get a job in McDonald's. Never put his hand on a gun. But that's what he was charged with in the group.
Right.
That's just him.
Right.
And he's 25. He's got a chance. Look what happened to these boys at 17 and 18. We should be outraged all across this country because they're living. Because the alternative was Trayvon Martin.
Right.
Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland. That's the alternative. What are we doing? What the heck are we doing?
Yeah.
And not knowing that they're digging up our burial lands in the Dakotas, And the worst thing of all, the tariffs mean that things in the Dollar Tree are going to be more expensive.
New episodes premiered June 1st. Episodes of the season air on Saturdays at 9 on OWN. And the Acts of Faith remix tour.
Yeah.
What all is that? What does that mean?
Well, you didn't have a copy of Acts of Faith, a little?
Yes, but
everybody
I
did.
try to keep it general for people. I don't know. They sit down home and they go, oh, what is?
Yeah, I know. Everybody, that was our medicine cabinet. That was our walk-in medicine cabinet. I mean, Acts of Faith had a life all its own. People didn't even know I was the author. because it didn't have an author. It was just a little purple
Was that
book.
by design?
No, it's just how people picked it up in this. It came out around the same time as Eric Copage's Black Pearls.
Okay.
Yeah. And then came Acts of Faith and Louisa Tisha's Jambalaya, where she was talking about spirituality from an African perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So those 3 books were out, and Acts of Faith just took off. It didn't have an author. It had a life all its own. So, but that wisdom in that book, because I gathered all manner of wisdom, people of color, of all colors, all nations, all races, all nations. And so now we seem to live faithlessly. We really do. We don't trust. We're mean. Oh, my God, we are so mean to each other. Sometimes I read things that people write on, social media.
Yeah, the keyboard courage.
And it really, I weep.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be talking about me. I don't read what they say about me because I don't deserve that. But sometimes I bump into what they say about each other.
I bump into it.
So, so faith is something we need today.
That's when you say that. I mean, I have an app that I use because I try to keep away from the Facebook and the privacy issues and all of that stuff and Twitter. But basically, what I was talking about today, it's just like when it comes to me, I was like, the one thing about, I guess, being alone a lot of times in my house, what I've learned, Mr. Vanzant, is I've learned how to pray out loud.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And so I said that, even when I'm out with my kids, I think people even look at us in restaurants because we are going to hold hands and I'm not afraid of any of any looks or any of that. I'm like, I think people, to your point, need to embrace the fact that you believe.
Yeah, in something other than your Twitter account. Or the number of friends that you
Yeah, how many
got.
likes you can get.
Yeah, it's so funny. I said, I have 2,900,000 and some odd likes.
Right.
And so everybody was like impressed by that. And so after, and I said, oh, yeah, okay. So finally I said, well, what does that mean exactly? Because I didn't know.
Right.
And it just means that I put up something or did something and people hit the like. The question now is, how many of those 2 million are engaged?
Right.
So they keep upping the ante.
Mm-hmm.
They keep upping the ante. So first it was follow me. Then it was like me. Now it's be engaged with me. But we'll walk by each other in the street and don't speak.
Right.
Or we'll get on, like you said, the keyboard courage and talk. Oh, my God, some of the things that I've seen, I weep with sadness, So faith, not only from a religious perspective,
Right.
but faith in each other, faith in ourselves, faith in this process, faith in everything. We got to redefine it. That's why I'm calling it the Remix Tour.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Iyanla Vanzant. It's Ryan Cameron Uncensored. It's magic.